All right, we're live with another episode. This is an awesome guest. She's badass. She's SWAT. She's everything. We got the one and only Megan Kennedy from KennedyCopFitness. What's going on?
Hey, John. How's it going?
Hanging in there. Just another day with another exciting guest and having fun. So you have a really interesting story. We got to talking and kind of spend some time chit-chatting back and forth and got to know each other as I like to with every guest. And you were referred to me by a mutual friend, mutual guest. And you have a great story. So you are training all the time. You're working your ass off. What made you kind of go down this path, this Leo path and get into this and get hot and heavy with the fitness, with everything? What is it about all these things that kind of you wanted a life of basically what had been essentially, you know, something you'd see a dude doing, right? Like what took you down this road?
Oh, no, that's very true. Fitness has always been a part of my life. I'm the youngest of four siblings, and we were luckily involved in a lot of sports growing up and everything else. So it kind of brought me in the path in that way. I moved here to North Carolina from Michigan on my own after completing college, everything. I decided that I wanted to have a career in law enforcement, heard good things about the South. So that's how I ended up here. My sister came, second oldest sister, came about a year after I did. She started her process of opening a gym. So that kept me very involved in the fitness world. And she was able to teach me a lot in regards to that. Plus, being in law enforcement, I just think it's so important to be physically fit.
Oh, God, yeah.
But it really gained a passion for me. I mean, I liked heavy lifting and everything, but I really learned to love it. Once you see those numbers change and your body composition change and you're just able to do better also at work and able to keep up with the boys and everything, that's really where my fitness career started to explode, because I wanted to just be as strong and fast as possible that I could be, just, you know, regardless of any social norms. I know there's perception. Some people, I think it's great, girls muscle, and then some people don't like it so much. But
right.
I mean, that's not really the reason that I do it.
Yeah, I think the there's always that stigma, but I think it's passing a little bit. I think people understand now that women like to train, and there's a huge training component to what you do. So you're a little bit more on, I guess you'd say, like the accepted side, right? Like, I think if you were just straight doing fitness and it wasn't a part of your job, I think you'd eat a little more shit for that, you know?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely changing. I'd say even 5-6 years ago, when I got into heavy lifting and everything, there was a lot of criticism out there to getting too bulky and looking too like a man. And now that's kind of going away. I mean, girls are more accepting of it. They may not want to get to the same level as some others, but they're really trying for that avenue because, I mean, strong is cool. I think it's great. I love seeing people improve and see their bodies change.
Now, why law enforcement?
Honestly, I've answered this question many times and, you know, interviews and everything else. And it's really one of those weird things that's just the only thing I saw myself doing. I know everybody says they like to help people and all these things. And yeah, that's the basic answer if I was in an interview that I would do. And I do enjoy helping people. But it's just what I saw myself doing. I saw myself either possibly going down a military avenue or law enforcement, you know, growing up paying cops and robbers and everything. I was always the cop, always the one going after the bad guy. And it's just cool. It's something different every single day. Some days are more interesting than others. And some days you're impacting someone's life in a good way and sometimes in a not so good way. You know, you're taking them to jail and whatnot, but you have a direct impact on so many people that I think just a lot of occupations don't get to do that.
Did you always want to play cops and robbers? That was the thing?
Yes, growing up that is. And the funny thing is, I remember one time my mom told me, she's like, you can play with guns now as a kid, but don't you grow up and be a cop. And that's exactly what I ended up doing.
And a lot of people, it's a grind. It's a grind.
And I have no one else in family, extended family, that is in law enforcement. And obviously she's come around, you know, the day that I told her and everything else. And she thinks it's great. Of course she worries like any, you know, family member would, but they see my passion for it, and that I just want to, get out there and be the best cop that I can be and help other people.
Now, it can be something that is a little bit taboo, the whole social media thing. So the social media thing comes in, Megan, and you start to, have a little bit of a following there. You start to garner a little support. Has it been a bit of a boondoggle at work, or are they totally cool about it?
They've been really cool about it. Now, I only started even associating with being law enforcement, especially, with the whole SWAT aspect or anything like that, within the last year, I would say. Before that, I was very much so the person that did not put anything about law enforcement on there because it wasn't that my department said, don't do this. It was just more so I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be that girl that put, in the uniform and everything else in order to get likes or anything, because that's not me. But when I got on SWAT and I actually, was not on probation anymore or anything, I'd done my time to be a full-fledged SWAT member, and I was able to post those things, and I realized that there just aren't that many female SWAT operators, and it turned into one of those things that, well, this is inspiring to other females, and I just didn't really even realize it until, 6 months later, when I'm getting constant messages about people that are either inspired by it or they just think it's cool, and it's something that, they wish their family member or something like that would want to do. So I've kind of turned it more into that, as not even realizing it on purpose, posting some of the things that I do, that it's really inspiring a lot of females to go after that when before they just didn't feel like they were capable. But my department's been cool about it. They haven't said anything.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, you're not out there if we're being honest, you're not out there posting like the slutty kind of like, look at me, half naked type stuff. You're actually posting training, and that's something that I think wins you a lot of points in a lot of different communities. And you're not doing it in a way that's like, hey, look at me, hashtag free stuff or whatever. You're kind of just doing your thing, and it's real. And that's what I think resonates with a lot of people. It's like, here's me, here's some training shots, here's my life, here's a snapshot into what I'm doing. And, I've been around long enough to see different incarnations of things, but your stuff's very original. It's very who you are, and I think it's true to form. I mean, you dig training, you get out there, you participate, and you're the real deal. And that's kind of what I look for, or what inspires me. Who out there and what inspires you?
No, I appreciate that. It's funny that you say that as far as just out there doing me, because I feel like that is 100% just my platform without even realizing it was. It's just, I'm the one that does have a lot of tattoos, has the shaved side, head, and doesn't put that persona as far as like, I'm going to wear my training gear and everything else. Like every now and then you'll see some Lululemons out there on the range if I'm trying to do a lot of fitness things. But otherwise, I'm in more tack pants, and that's just who I am. I don't care. I know it doesn't win a lot of points with a lot of people, and they'll have their comments. But there are so many good comments to the one or two negative people that it's funny. These profiles that are just these tiny little profiles that are like, oh, that's nasty, that hair and this, that, and another, or those muscles, or what is she doing, and why is this, why is that? And then you have 100 people that like it. So you just can't get discouraged by that if you're willing to put yourself out there. But as far as who inspired me in police and fitness and everything else, really my sister was fitness, and police, I didn't really have anybody to look to, but my team more so. I just want to be the best member that I can be, and I want to be that regardless male, female, that they just look at me that like, that's a good operator. So that's always my goal. I get out there and train because I just want to be seen not as, oh, she's good for a female. No, I just want to be good operator in general.
Yeah, I think that's well said, and I think that's something that's rare sometimes in the Instagram police community. And I think I talk a lot with guys like Mike the Cop, and they have their opinions, and everybody does, and I think it's a lot of figuring out who out there is giving the best portrayal to being real, to being what they are. Like, you know, I've been around the gun business a long time. I'm at the point where
Sure.
people, you know, look at my posts and they see me post these people and everything else. And these are guests. They're guests on my shows. It's what I do in a day. It's what my day is, you know, and people are like, oh, you know, he's just posting, you know, to like this. I'm like, that's what my day is. You know, I'm at the point where I'm not running around getting muddy like I used to. You know, I've been around long enough that I started out in the business doing a lot of training and doing a lot of demos and things like that. But my time has passed. You know, I'm not, it's like sometimes I explain to Ruben Alvarez, who's a good friend of mine, Ruben BJJ, I'm like, I'm not 26 anymore, Ruben. I can't get out. I'm not, you know, I'm not 25. I can't get out there and do it like I used to. You know, Tony's 40. You know, he's, you know, we're at the end of the line here. You know, it's time for the new blood to come up. The folks like yourself that, you know, are doing it and getting out there and training. And I love that. I love seeing it. I applaud it. It's amazing. And it's so encouraging because I think that you guys are going to forge the path for what the future is going to look like, both on social media and in law enforcement for time to come. And just the excitement around training and the energy around training is what the industry needs right now. And I think it's important.
Oh, definitely. Well, and I think that, you know, whether you're SWAT or not, law enforcement in general needs more training.
Of course.
The amount of rounds that I put down in one day when I go out there are more rounds than most people get in a year. And that's sad because that's one of the big things that if you get into a shooting and everything else, you have to be able to hit your target where you intend to hit your target. And I just don't think a lot of people see the value in that. And I mean, I'll see it all the time, not my department necessarily, but cops in general, and the uncomfortableness with their firearms in certain instances where it's like, whoa, you need to train more just so that you're completely 1000% comfortable with that sidearm, that in the event that the day comes that you have to use it, like you're able to. So I think it's a detriment to the person, but it comes down to the department, and they don't provide the ammo. Not everybody can afford it to get out there and do that.
No, that's so true. And it's kind of heartbreaking in so many ways. Yeah, you can't cry boo-hoo for everybody and for every department because who has the time. But training, you know, is starting to become something that a lot of my generation, when I graduated the academy, that are starting to become sergeants and lieutenants and this and that, they're starting to really bang that drum. And I had the sheriff of Clark County here in Nevada on, and we talked, you know, he's making training a huge part of his program. And I think it has to be at a lot of departments. I think it has to become very important to the fabric of what folks are doing, you know, and how they're approaching their business, you know, and that's really what's important. And I don't think enough of a light is shined on that, but I think folks like yourself that are coming up are doing a good job of saying training's important to us. We need to have this. So I hope that that's a drum you're banging, not just locally, but at your department level too.
Oh, definitely. And I think Kat said it perfectly, I think, in her time talking with you and everything, that dry fire. And I think people underestimate how good that is. And then it doesn't even have to be just shooting, just training in general. I think it's a very, there's just not enough of it. And I get it that time is a huge thing for everybody, and they've got lives and they don't want to go on their off days and everything. But after the academy, there's certain things that you'll never do again, like scat training, hands-on training. You don't really do those things after the academy in most departments. And if you don't use it, you lose it. Just like with fitness and everything else. So I think that there just needs to be more training overall. It just needs to be a priority.
Right. I would agree. I have to ask the $1 million question. Why not shave the whole head?
Okay, I've got really long hair outside of the sides and everything. So it started with the back. Because I have super thick hair and it just got so hot in the summertime. So, all right, cool. We'll just do that back little area. And then as time went on, I saw the sides and everything, and I'm like, that's super cool. Why not? Right. I'm already down this road of why not? Let's do it. And so I did it. But I can rock right now. If I put my hair down and put it to the side, you wouldn't even know that it's shaved. And I love that factor. I love blowing people's minds and showing up with my hair straight, and then they're like, who is that? And they're like, oh crap, that's Kennedy and everything. So I still have very long hair on the top, but I like the shaved sides too.
What do you think of some of the people out there that are portraying themselves as kind of Instagram celebrity cops? You know, do you look at them like a little bit like, you know, come on, like give me a break? Or what are your feelings towards some of the folks out there? And you know what I'm talking about. So, you know, try not to give me the political answer.
No, I do. And there are a lot of really good ones. I love all the humanizing the badge and everything. Ones that are giving good information and everything else, or even sometimes those of us who are just gear whores and everything with tactical training. I get why they're posting is to promote their business or whatever else or their product. But at the same time, for me, it gives me ideas. So I'm like, I like you. Now, the ones that are just posting in the uniform and just, I don't know, the reason they're doing it, not doing it in what you said, like skimpy clothing or doing the skimpy clothing to the uniform. What value are you bringing to us? I guess that's what I wonder, is that those people just typically, I think you're just, I don't know. I don't really have the right word for it.
Yeah,
does.
It hurts the movement, right? So I look at folks like yourself, Pew Pew Goddess. I look at Mikey Coonahan, No Donuts here, friends of mine, people I consider friends, and I like to think after this I consider you a friend. And I say they're, you know, of course, Mike the cop. I mean, you know, I love Mike,
of course,
but you know, I see them. They're moving the ball forward, right? They're moving the dialogue forward. They're showing that social media can be a form of community policing. And I don't like to use the word policing. I like to say, almost saying, look at me, I'm a shining example in your community. I can be, you know, training. I can be sexy without being half naked. I can be cool. I can be all these things. And when I say the word sexy, I mean like have a appeal, you know?
Sure.
It's just, you know, it's an East Coast term. I just say like, you know, sexy it up and, you know, do something and add something to the conversation that whether you're a chief, a lieutenant, whatever you are, a drug addict in the community, you can look at somebody's page and you can say, damn, I need to put my frickin' gym shoes on and I need to get my sweats on and I need to get out of this funk I'm in. Like Pat McNamara said it the best, in his darkest hour in the bottle, he one day looked at his clothes sitting on the side of the bed and he just got up and he just started training and being a Delta and being what he was. His body just got out of that funk he was in after whatever, many divorces and everything else. He just said, I need to train again. I need to train. And you just snap out of it. And if that's what your goal is as a page, to get people to kind of say, here's a good person, community leader. And that's what I think every Leo should be. They should be a community leader.
Without a doubt.
That's my thoughts. And I think at the end of the day, there's people that are out there that are trying to be, what do you want to call it, badge profiteers, or whatever verbiage you want to use. I think that they lose sight of what the mission is. And I think that this can be a form of community policing, for lack of better words.
Oh, I completely agree. And then the other aspect of it that you kind of hit on, and it just made me think about it, is that one of my main things, and especially, you know, with the look and everything else, is that I love humanizing in the fact that I am no different than you. I'm no better than you. I'm no anything than you. I went to school for this, and therefore I was sworn in, but it does not make me someone different. It does not make me above you. And that's my big thing, is that I'm not above you. I'm not above tomorrow, something happening, and I could be in the same position that you are. I'm willing to admit that as a cop. And that's the kind of platform I try and take with people and everything. And when I deal with them in the community, because just because I wear this badge does not mean I'm not a human just like you. And I go home, you know, to the same kind of problems that you go home to and everything. So that's one of my things, is that I just hate that with a lot of cops, it's, you know, the I'm better than you mentality, and that's not all of them. It's just a few bad ones that unfortunately put it out there. Or it's, you know, I'm cool because I am a cop. Like, no, yeah, sure, it's cool that you're a cop and everything, but especially with social media. But is that really all that you define as?
Would any authoritarian position, there comes a God complex, right? Anytime you have the ability to speak to the masses, there's some type of, I like to call it responsibility. You know, at the end of the day, we all have a platform. Whether you're a doctor or a janitor, you have a platform, and people are going to listen to you, even if it's at the water cooler. How you handle that platform is entirely going to shape how people view you. And you, as a law enforcement officer, get an inherent platform. People, if you say, hey, come here, you like to think people are going to listen to you. They're going to respond. You know, hey, I want to, you know, you do a stop, you have their attention. So how you handle that platform is going to define everything about you. And you're going to be, anybody would be out of a job really quick if you're not handling that platform properly.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's important. It's really important to take that with a certain degree of responsibility, with a certain degree of gravitas, if you will, and people do abuse it. But the real reality is, I think law enforcement today has an insanely thankless job, and I think folks today are really caught between a rock and a hard place in terms of finding their place in the universe, because I see what's going on in New York, and I've seen some of the things, and without getting political, it's very tough to be a cop today.
Oh, it is. It is. The respect level is just not what I'm sure it used to be. And it really started to change when I got into law enforcement 7 years ago. It's just different now, and you have to deal with that. But I think that's where just respect comes in more, especially if you're in a smaller community, or, you know, you're at a county department versus a police department. You tend to interact with the same people, and how you handle yourself is so important. And it's silly, but one of those things that, depending on your department, whether you can show tattoos or not, just like I said, just by me showing up and showing that I have them too, and I'm just like you and everything, it changes people's opinion immediately with you. And if you show them respect, so we have a long road ahead of us, unfortunately, at changing that perception. But like you said already, it can happen, and it will happen, and social media can be a great thing. It can be a detriment to us, but it also can be a really good thing for us. We just have to, you know, keep moving forward, but it's not going to be easy, that's for sure.
Have you ever had to call someone out, a fellow Leo?
Call them out? What do you mean?
In terms of like them doing something not above board, or have you ever had to get like the gang against them?
The gang against them.
Like, you ever see somebody post something or do something?
Oh, you're talking about social media wise?
Yeah, social media wise.
No, not yet. So I have not seen anything like that. No.
Well, it's coming. I mean, I think at some point some of these people are going to turn on some, because I think I've seen it in its ugly form, and I've had conversations offline with a few cops, and I think there's a few, like you said, there's always somebody that shows up to the party and there's alcohol there, or there's maybe some weed, but then there's that one person that has to show up with heroin and ruin the party, if you catch my drift. So there's going to be somebody along the way that I think is going to ruin the party. So
you're right.
You know,
I have no doubt. It always is that way.
Your radar up, and sooner or later, the world has a way of policing itself, in my opinion. So that's kind of how I see it. I see folks like yourself, Pew Pew guys, certain people. I see it like, I see you guys eventually being like, what's this bitch doing? You know, we got to straighten this one out. You know, I see it. I see it. So in my opinion, I think it's a matter of time. So
yeah. I agree.
If it hasn't happened already and you're just not sharing it with me. So No,
it hasn't happened yet. I mean, I'm sure. I have no doubt that it will eventually, but sure. I haven't come across it.
What do you see in the future for law enforcement and social media? What's your vision of it? And I like to ask everybody this.
I actually don't know where it's going to go because I actually feel like just what you're saying, that it's going to become more restricted, and that I think that we're not going to be able to post a lot of things. I'm actually surprised at some of the things that do get posted and some of the videos. I think they're great learning experiences, especially for other law enforcement when it comes to certain instances. But at the same time, I see the community constantly getting those things taken down, and they don't want to see it.
Right.
So I actually think it's become more restricted.
Yeah, I would agree. I see at some point departments cracking down on their policy and how they create their policy and kind of how that plays out. But, I don't think it's now. I think as time goes on and as folks in our age group in that 25 to 35 age group start to ascend into leadership roles, you're going to understand the metrics a lot better, and understanding the metric a lot better, you're going to be able to police it a lot better. A lot of these guys don't even understand what they're getting into. They just don't understand it. That's part of the problem. And, you talk to your chief or unless you have a young progressive chief, they don't really know what they're policing. You know what I mean? They're kind of like, what is this? And, it's just someone putting a picture. Okay, that's cool. So they don't even know what they're kind of getting into. It's very new to them. So I see that coming down the pike in time very quickly, and I think it's.
I think a lot of departments haven't even looked at the Instagram world. They still see like Facebook as the main thing, and they see what people post on Facebook, which I personally have a private account and I don't post a lot on it. It's turned more into what people eat and everything else throughout the day, and I see Instagram as videos and funny memes and things to learn from. So that's kind of what I primarily use. But I know most of my department probably doesn't even use Instagram, so that's just a matter of time, though.
Facebook's a funny one because, people try to sometimes battle me on Facebook, and I'm like, dude, my dead grandmother's on Facebook. Like, give me a break. Like what the fuck? Sure. But that's kind of like just where Facebook is. So, I think it's only a matter of time before that narrative shifts, because Facebook's become more of a place to blog or put your thoughts. I don't think it's necessarily a great place to put a sandwich, but I also think that there's, what you're having for lunch, but I also think there's a place for, some level of, your thoughts, kind of like how Mike's used it, what you think about a situation, humanizing the badge, having a conversation about, your thoughts on something. And that's always very hard for you guys because you're not allowed necessarily per se to have an opinion at times. So it makes it very difficult, but Mike's done a good job.
No, for blogging, it's really good. And you see more pages getting created for that. Otherwise, though, I'd say most people that I'm friends with on Facebook are my family members. It's not like Instagram where there's anybody and everybody you accept.
Who out there inspires you?
Just in general, or
in general,
policing,
outside of include policing, but who do you look at from afar? Give me, specific examples, and you're like, damn, I really love their style.
Well, I would say, as far as like the SWAT, we'll start with the SWAT world and everything. My CERT commander is Esoteric on Instagram, and he's put a lot of time and dedication into everything, and he has his personal page for his business and everything. And what it is it's just phenomenal. And it's somebody who's taken something and constantly learning and constantly improving and changing, and not willing to just stay stagnant. Oh, this has always worked. I'd say from fitness wise, I'm lucky enough to have a really good training partner, Ashley Hawkins AE on Instagram. She's very, very strong, and she just portrays a lot of the things that I like to portray as far as law enforcement goes. And then in the shooting community, people like Kareem Mosier, great shooters, Carla, Barbell Penguin, she's a great shooter. But yeah, that's about it.
And when
there's a ton of people. I'm just not able to think on the top of my head.
No, when you look at them, does it inspire you to get out and train more, or is it just more the messaging?
Oh, absolutely. No, that's why I love Instagram sometimes, because I'll constantly be looking, and even, let's say fitness, I had a bad training day, and I watched somebody do something, it's like, I shouldn't have let that day get to me and give up on that, and then it gets me, excited for the next day for it. And then with my drills, I like to look back even at my own stuff, but when I see other people out there training and putting into different drills and things, like that just gets me going to even train harder than I already do.
And training hard is easy to keep up with. How do you do it?
I get up early. I start shifts at 6 a.m. when on days that I work, and so I'm getting up around 2:30 in the morning in order to be able to get into the gym in time before, because I just don't have the energy by the end of a 12-hour shift to go and work out at then. It's just not going to be a good training day. I already know that I'm a morning person, but then I also go to bed really early. Like, I'm the grandma that goes to bed at 9 o'clock at night and has no problem with
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. You know.
I really just don't mind. It does not bother me. I know that it bothers a lot of people, but I guess it's just self-motivation. I think you can't always be somebody else motivating you. You also have to have the drive and say that I want to make this change. Just like you were talking about, Pat. I want to make this change. I want to be better. We all have ups and downs with fitness and life and everything. And there's certain days where you realize, like, I got to lock it in. I got to go harder, or I got to do better about my eating or anything. But that's self-motivation. I don't think anybody else can motivate you to want to do that. They can push you harder, but you also have to be self-motivated, or take the time to go to the range on your off day and not just spend it doing, whatever. You have to want to do those things.
Right. It's not easy. It's just not easy.
No.
And that's what I try to explain to people all the time that ask the question. You always get the question, or the answer, I guess, to the question. The obvious question is, I don't have the time, right? That's what you get all the time. And I always say, well, you have to make the time. And they're like, but I have kids, or I have this, or I have that. And I'm like, well, it just comes down to you have excuses, right? You have to eliminate a lot of that stuff, and you have to make the time. People do it. They do it with jobs like yours that require 12-hour days, on call, call outs. We were supposed to do this last night. You had a call out. Life happens, and you have to prepare for it. And how you prepare for it in the preparation and getting yourself to the next level, and how you figure out what you're going to do to make yourself that person that just doesn't say no. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get that type of motivation from somebody else all the time. It's not going to happen. There's just no way. It's not to say you can't look at something The Rock posts, or Tony puts out, some of these people put out there, even Mike, with the jiu-jitsu stuff, and you're not going to say, geez, I feel really motivated. That person kicked me in a high gear. But at the same time, it can't always come from them. You're absolutely right. There's just no way. You'll fall off the table. There won't be enough consistency. You have to have some type of internal drive and motivation. I mean, were you beat up by your brothers or sisters or something growing up? Is that really what did it?
No. Actually, I was really close with my siblings. We grew up in a very much so broken home. Parents who didn't get along. They got divorced before I even remember being in kindergarten, but got back together for the kids. So I'm always not a proponent for that being the only reason to get back together, because I grew up with parents that fought all the time, and trust me, it would have been better if they would have just separated. But it pushed us closer together. When I was 16, shit at the fan essentially, and my dad wasn't happy, kicked the girls, my two sisters and myself out, and my mom left the next day, and that instilled a very much so independency with me, but also I've taken a little from all my siblings. So I've taken a little from my sisters, and I've taken a little from my brother, and kind of formulated into who I am. And seeing them work hard has instilled in me, but I guess it's just always been something there. Like, my mom worked hard when we did leave the house, but she's always worked hard even before then. But she really had to kick it into gear. She was working night shift. I was by myself. My sisters were in college. And I had to make that choice at a very early age of, like, stay in the straight and narrow, or I could have done whatever I wanted.
Right.
I mean, I essentially was adulting myself at that time. But luckily, I did stay on the right track. But I had sisters who were doing well in college, so that helped me because I had those good role models and everything.
Sure. Despite
my situation, that it was an unfortunate one. But I don't like the excuse of there's not enough time, because yes, no, I do not have kids and I'm not married, but I do have other responsibilities and I make the time. I think it doesn't have to be like you and I have talked about a 3-hour training session like I do. You don't have to do that, but to get something in, whether you're in law enforcement or not, fitness it's important, and you should want to be better overall, whether it's endurance, strength, or whatever. I just think you got to do something. There's no magic. You got to be powerlifter. You got to be a CrossFitter. You got to be this, that, and another. Nope. I've done a little bit of everything. I think as long as you put some kind of work in, I think it's just an excuse at the end of the day that there isn't time.
Is there something else you want to do, like jiu-jitsu or some combat sports? Have you thought about getting into that?
So I've thought about getting into something just for more to help me in law enforcement, because I did get that very little training when you're in the academy and everything. But so the first time through, when I initially moved down here, I went through the academy for the police department, and 21 weeks through, tore my ACL. It was just kind of one of those freak things that happened during one of our trainings. I didn't know I tore it. And so I got up and they said, by Monday, this was a Thursday, by Monday, you've got to be walking on it and get through firearms or you're recycled. I wasn't going to let that happen. So I put a brace on it and went through 2 weeks of firearms. It still wasn't getting better. It was popping constantly in and out of place. And finally they did a MRI and realized it was torn, recycled me. Put me back in 6 months later to go back through the academy again, where I got a ton more training. So I got a little bit more than what most people, but then during that one, I hyperextended the other knee just by a freak thing. Somebody ran in and pinned me up against the wall. So I've got a knee thing where I pushed past it. I'm stronger than I ever was, faster than I ever was, but I didn't want to do a ton of ground stuff, because that's how I messed up both of my knees. But now I'm getting to that point where that would progress me in my career, that I don't want there even to be a question if we went to the ground, that I'm not going to dominate that, because I know I'll do whatever I need to do in any type of situation, but why wouldn't I better myself in that way? So it's something I've definitely been considering over the last few months, of getting involved in some kind of either, whether it's jiu-jitsu, MMA, BBJ, something.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu is the most logical for law enforcement due to availability and just there's no striking in it, and it's something I've been a proponent of and trained in for a while. But jiu-jitsu tends to be the most logical place for it. So yeah, I mean, hopefully you get the opportunity, you get into it on some level, because I think it's really a good tool to have. And whether you become a black belt or whatever you decide to do, I think some pursuit of that. But what I've found, and I have a long history in the fitness world, for me, you have to kind of put something else down for a little while, not necessarily all the time, but you're not going to be able to go in the gym and pound weights like an animal, and it just takes too much of a toll on your body.
Oh yeah.
So you have to find a medium for the two and balance that all out.
No, you're definitely right. I've been there and overtrained and caused, smaller injuries from that kind of thing. So if you do too much, I have been down that road before. So you just have to take a break from this and go do that. And usually you're better from that anyway, because your body kind of needs a break sometimes.
Yeah, I absolutely believe in overtraining. I don't prescribe to these people that say there's no such thing as overtraining. And I know Mike O'Hearn will lose his mind, but I'm telling you, I believe that there is overtraining. I have my belief system in it, and I think there's times for your bodies to heal, because there's times I've taken time off and I've come back and my body feels amazing, and I'm able to do things I could do 5 and even 10 years ago. So for me, I try to explain to people all the time, there is overtraining. There's no doubt there's overtraining. But you have to find that balance, and you have to listen to your body at times. And a lot of people don't do that. And that's where some of the failures come in.
No, yeah, totally agree.
So now let's jump forward a little bit. Where do you see this all going?
Well, really, the main thing right now is I'm getting really into the tactical games, and it's kind of merged my two worlds together between fitness and SWAT and everything, because that's kind of like their platform of what the tactical games is. So as far as social media and all that goes, that's kind of down the road, like helping other people get involved with that, or helping other females who want to be on SWAT. I'm going to try and go down the avenue. I'm one of those people that I don't want to tell other people how to do something if I'm not at a certain level. And so up until this point, I haven't really gone out of my way to say, hey, this is what I'm doing, or this works for me, or anything, because although I'm still learning, of course, I'll always be a student. I now feel comfortable enough to be like, hey, these are some good ideas. I just don't like being that person if I haven't actually put those things to the test. I'm not going to tell you to use something if I haven't used it myself, for example. So I think that's really the avenue that I want to take with it as far as my page goes, just to inspire other people in general to get out there and train and, even just be who you want to be. I don't feel that there's a need to try and be anything in particular. Like, people will like you for who you are. And hopefully more females getting involved in SWAT or just training in general with law enforcement. I think that would be phenomenal right there.
Yeah. Do you know that when Tony and I, Real World Tactical, and even going as far back as Pat, people thought we were crazy for trying to merge shooting and fitness. They thought we were out of our minds.
Forever.
Yep.
Oh, no, I've heard it from a lot of SWAT guys. They're like, oh, we used to do that forever ago. They're like, we just didn't call it that, or it was more internal or anything. So it's been around for a long time that people have been doing this style thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's just never traded into this kind of a platform.
A lot of it was, and I know a lot of guys come out and say, we've been doing that forever. A lot of it was, though, in fairness to Pat, to Tony, to some of the pioneers, a lot of it was calisthenics. And you still see it now in some of the old curriculums. A lot of the stuff, like even some of the look left, look right stuff, it's all bullshit. Mm-hmm. And it's been debunked 100 times, but you see it all still in training. When I went through the academy, I'm going to tell you, Megan, it was like, they're like, oh, look to your left, look to your right, that breaks tunnel vision. I'm like, what? I'm like, this has been debunked and this is 10 years ago. This has been
they still do it.
Yeah, I'm like, and I always ask, what's the point? What is the point? And no one can answer it clear. All they say is it breaks tunnel vision. But you see these types of things still alive and well in the curriculum. And it's going to take time for them to fully understand that the world is a dynamic environment. The range needs to be 360. You need to be around competent people. That's why when I go down and I RSO or I'm involved in some of these trainings, whether it's with the Tonys of the world or different guys from different situations, when you train, and I know you know this already, at a high level with some of these guys that are all SWAT level or higher, you're operating in a 360 condition. There's no the berms here, everything's hot. Now people sometimes are like, oh, how can you do that? I'm like, well, the world is hot, okay, in every direction, and don't give me this tunnel vision shit that it breaks. Because what does Pat McNamara say? You do that, you basically say, I quit. Because wherever you turn your eyes, you're going to point your pistol. So it's training in a realistic environment. So a lot of these drills and different things have existed, and they've just only existed at the highest levels. Now that they're coming out on social media and people are publicizing them and they're coming more and more to reality, the key is to understand that the difference is how that they're used and who that they're used with. And we cringe sometimes at people that try to push the envelope beyond, and you see some of these training accidents, and I know you've seen them, because people are trying to push it to a level it doesn't need to go to, and that's where it gets dangerous, and that's where it causes angst.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with that completely.
And, I think that there's a movement right now behind the scenes, and I hear about it when people call me and complain. There's a little bit of a movement where people are giving away too many training secrets, and that's kind of becoming an issue. I think that will police itself. It's going to take time. It's just, social media is a funny place. It's a weird incubator where I think as people step up and police it, and everybody has an opinion and everybody is an expert, I think it's just going to take a little bit of time. And I think folks like yourself are doing it right. I think you're absolutely doing it right. So I'm looking forward to the more content you put out, the things that you do. And I think it's going to be super exciting. Do you ever eventually see yourself forming a business around it?
Not right now. I don't. But I'm, like I said, I'm still so new that that's just not my character to be like, yeah, I'll totally do a business to it. If I continue to progress and hopefully everything goes down that avenue of me getting better. As long as I'm constantly getting better and I feel that I was at that level to create a business from it, then sure, absolutely. Right now, I can't really see that. I'm just so focused on how do I become a better operator and get to a higher level? Because I'm still technically a new guy at the end of the day. I mean, I've only been doing this SWAT-wise for 2 years. So I just consider myself so new to the tactical or even firearm industry in that way. So I just want to keep progressing all those things, keep making good connections. I've made such good connections in the last year and met so many great people that, I mean, without me and the things I've posted and everything, and Kat wanted to see me and she wouldn't have, told you and everything else. So I only have good things to say with the things that have happened for me since getting more involved in it.
Any plans to go to NRA or SHOT?
Oh, next year, without a doubt, I will be there.
Yeah, I think it's a great tool for a lot of you guys and gals to get out there and mix and meet some of the people. And I'm always curious to get your thoughts. Have you heard anything about the shows, or what are your, I want to hear it from someone who's virginal to the whole experience. What are your preconceived notions about these shows?
Oh, I've only heard a lot about SHOT Show, especially because as soon as I kind of heard about it, because I really didn't up until this past year. And so I tried to make it happen, but it didn't, unfortunately, line up with schedule and everything else. But everybody's just like, it's a crazy week. You're just up the whole time. You're meeting hundreds and hundreds of people, going out at night. Everybody gets sick, everything else. But everybody's just had great things to say as overall just making really good connections and seeing a lot of really cool shit. So from the outside perspective, don't have a ton on it, but everybody enjoys it, or I guess they wouldn't go back.
Yeah, it's a great, like I said, it's a great tool. It can be fairly useful if you know how to navigate the waters and you spend some time at the right booths and you work with the proper brands. And, it can be one of those things that you can harvest a lot from it if done properly. And you have to go in there with a plan. And I tell newbies all the time, the first time through, go into it with no expectation. Don't go into it with structure, because that'll all break down. You're new to it. Go see some of the companies and brands that you maybe have loved from afar. Take a peek at them. Go meet some of the people. Go shake a few hands. Introduce yourself, but don't go into it with a high expectation. Treat it like a workation, and come out of it with an understanding of what the market looks like and who the players are. And if you can latch on to somebody that can point you in the right direction or put you in the right couple of circles, you can meet some really cool people and start some really good dialogue, and eventually maybe it leads you to a path or opens your eyes to something. But the tactical industry has long been an industry where if you're looking for riches, it's you got to carve out a whole another world for yourself. It's very difficult and very hard because there's so many people in it. It's so flooded. And I think it'll slow down gradually. It already has, with, people returning from overseas and folks kind of moving on from it, and kind of the long-term players tend to stick around for the most part. But a lot of Leos have made a great career, whether it's getting into personal training or getting into instructing, and they've built a nice little bridge for themselves.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. I agree with everything.
But it's amazing having you on. I want you to take a minute, because believe it or not, we've already gone 50 minutes. I want you to take a minute to plug all your sponsors and let everybody know where to find you.
Sure. Instagram handle, KennedyCopFitness. Don't really have too many sponsors, but I have a lot of companies that I love. Soldier socks. For every pair that you buy of their socks, they send a pair to active duty. I think it's a fantastic company, super small business, local North Carolina, everything made in the U.S. Velocity systems are great. And like I said, Esoteric, awesome company, really good training. But yeah, that's it.
Well, I appreciate the hell out of you coming on, and I'm glad we made the connection. It's been amazing hearing your story the last couple of days and getting a spitball back and forth with you. I'm really looking forward to what you have going on in the next few months, and kind of how this all shapes up for you in the coming years, because I think you're going to do amazing stuff. And I think what you're putting out there is just hardcore. It's pretty badass, and it's refreshing to see, to be quite honest with you. I have to applaud you for not being the atypical, I'm going to throw a bikini on and be a fitness chick or whatever. I really love that about you and Pew Pew Goddess and some of the folks out there that are trying to do it and portray themselves in a way that I feel is accurate, and I feel is commending to the job that they're doing.
Well, I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for having me. It really means a lot.
Well, I can't thank you enough. I want to thank everyone in the studio, and I know we'll be hearing from you again, and I'm looking forward to it. Do your best to continue to just do what you're doing and put that messaging out there. And I tell everybody the same thing all the time. I think you're a great reflection of the defense industry, and I think that you have to just expect nothing, blame no one, and do your job. And that's what I say all the time. And I think that's something that you portray in your page and the things that you do. So I'm really looking forward to how that plays out. And if you ever need anything, you can always reach out. I love having folks like yourself a part of the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, we're going to sign out, and I appreciate everyone for taking the time to listen. Please leave a review and let us know what you think.